All right, guys, I wanted to give you an update on the latest version of the intranet system. That update allows us to do a couple neat things, but the biggest thing that I want to talk about right now is being able to apply roles to all our calendars. The roles are indicated by this officer emblem, driver, ALS, medic. Each calendar is different, can be set up different. So it's based on the feedback from the captains of how that calendar is set up. So, for example, Jody and Doug decided they wanted truck and engine options that fit their station the best. So if you see on station 41, the only options you have for roles is a truck or an engine role. If we go back and we go to, say, company 20, the only options that you have is an officer and a driver role. So, breaking down a little bit farther, each calendar is set up differently. Each calendar would be company 15, company 17, all your rescue agency calendars. All right, that's what your calendar is. Each calendar can be assigned roles. Each role can be assigned, and we can make roles, we can delete roles, we can make any role that you're looking for. But you assign each role to a calendar. So if we go to driver, a driver role you will find on all of these selected calendars. All right. If we go back, sorry, if we go back to the roles, you go down to the medic role, you only find it on one calendar, and that's Rescue 50, and that's because they have a requirement for that medic role. So we can set them however it fits best. Shifts. Each shift has a code. All right. So a lot of them you will be used to of what we've been using. But for an example, company 20, we would use the code C20. That would indicate a 12-hour shift, but this one is not required. All right. So what we did was we went back and said, okay, how can we better enable our calendars to ensure that we have the proper coverage? So we created a couple more codes, all right, which you don't need to remember them. It's just another way that you can get to the same ending. Is that we just went C20D. D stands for driver. C20O, O stands for officer. Those are the requirements for the company 20 calendar. You need to have a 12-hour driver and you got to have a 12-hour officer. So what that enables a captain to do is when he creates the schedule, we have a new option where we can create patterns. If you work a 24-hour shift, we can put you in, and the computer will automatically generate your schedule. We can go in and generate a 12-hour schedule, and then we can apply these codes to your schedule where when we post it from the grid, then it fills these requirements. So as you can see, the C20D is a required field. The C20O is a required field. You can click on them and you can see that it's required, and it starts at 6 and it's a 12-hour shift. If you go on down through here, you will find a couple others. Company 50, that'd be a bad example. Let's see here. All right, a Rescue 20D. All right, obviously it's a R20D. It stands for Rescue 20. It's a required field, and I just happen to know that this one's set for 24 hours. So it starts at 6. It's good for 12. So what it is doing is it's requiring a driver for 24 hours. All right, so let's go back to the beginning here. As you can see, Mike Smith on this day is marked as the officer. Right? I can go in and I can change Mike at any point in time. Don't matter what his shift code is. I can change him from officer. I can change him to the driver. I can do that. That's the other way, other than using the codes. You can come here and just manually make the change, which will be probably the method of use when people are calling in sick and we're having to fill vacation days. Some of those things that's going to make the schedule different, then we're going to have to do it that way. It's going to be imperative that the captains can go through their schedules and ensure that roles are set for the employees for the day. Where this comes in important is Lindsay will now be able to come in here to the open shift calendar and she can look for the month of January. There's only one open spot on the 27th of January that she still needs to fill. Everything else is covered. Right? If you go into February, there's a whole pile of open shifts, but it's because we haven't done the February schedule yet. So let's go into a schedule, just give you an example. Company 15. Company 15 has a 24-hour officer requirement and a 24-hour driver requirement. So on this day, on the 4th, David Lowe is fulfilling that officer role for 24 hours because he's working 6A to 6P. Tucson is only working 12 hours during the day, but he's marked as a driver. If Chad Stover wasn't shown on the schedule, well, it would show a partial shift available for a driver. But since Chad is showing, he's marked as the 12-hour night driver, so it fulfills the 24-hour coverage role of a driver. If I happen to come in here and I change Chad to an officer that day, you will note that partial shift will now automatically pop up because the role is now not satisfied because it needs another 12 hours of at night to fulfill that driver role. All right. Now, the bad thing about it would be is that we have the people to do it, but it's marked wrong. But it's indicated by partial shifts, and the captain should catch that when reviewing his schedule. I'll go back and change that back. And so it's taken back to where it needs to be. All right, so it's going to be imperative again that the captains are looking over the schedule and they're reviewing the schedule, ensuring that all the shifts are filled. One note that I need to make sure that I put out there is these roles are put out there to fulfill the calendar needs based on the computer. So Mike, let's see here. So Brian Kaplinger is shown as the officer at Rescue 20 this day. Marston is showing the driver for this day. That does not mean that Marston needs to drive on every call and Kaplinger's will be in the back for every call. It is nothing more than a method of fulfilling the open role requirements to ensure that we have the station coverage. So however you normally do business, switching off every other call, however it is, but just understand, because it says you're the officer of the day, doesn't mean you got to ride in the back of the ambulance all day. Or you're the driver, you don't have to drive all the day. There's going to be instances such as Broadway where there's no medics working here during the day, but there are 2 medics working at the firehouse. So the requirement for the medic is fulfilled for the Broadway area. They just happen not be working at squad that day, but we have a requirement for a medic for 24 hours at Rescue 50. So unless we mark somebody as a medic, it's going to show on that open shift that we're still needing a medic, when in reality we're fine. Okay, we have the coverage. So we just marked Josh Dove as the medic for the day, even though he's not the medic, or a medic, maybe one day, but not today. We just had to mark him as that. So